Okay, so I told you guys I would post a video of me answering the questions about how fast I read. The first few come from, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your URL, it's my god, Nerdy Nord. Anyway, I think you're the one I've talked to the most about this. First of all, you asked about if I would read faster if I use the technology where words flash one by one on screen. And you said it's been proven faster than like just reading line by line. If that technology is right, the way I'm thinking it is, it probably wouldn't help me much. I feel like that's probably more for learning to recognize words. I'm not really sure. I've never used that. I mean, it might. I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm going through the messages you and I were sending back and forth earlier. And you also asked, like, where I've said that I can read, two lines at once, or if something I'm familiar with, and you asked how it works. It's not necessarily, I'm trying to think, I am reading lines simultaneously. I don't know, I think, like, with Baker's Dozen, I'm familiar with the content, so it's easier for me, I guess, to expand, like, my peripheral vision, so I can probably read, like, I don't know, my brain, it works. I feel like it's a two-level type deal. I can be reading one line and at the same time read the other, and I can usually keep them at about the same pace. If that makes sense, I can't explain how my brain works, but that's the best way to do it. I'm reading, two or more lines at one time, but I'm doing them all at the same speed. But it's almost like level 1, level 2, level 3, how they're working. And you asked, does one I read one line and the other on another one? It's kind of the same answer. I feel like I'd look really cross-eyed if I was trying to train, eyes on different lines at one time. But I think it's just more or less, if I'm, reading left to right, like you're supposed to, I can just, like, I expand my vision to an extent. I think it's how I've read it explained online more than anything is, it's like you expand, like, your peripheral vision and everything else, and you're able to absorb a wider amount. So that's probably the best way it works for me. And you asked, how does it work for the temporality of whatever you're reading? Or, and you said, for example, if you're reading a story and you're reading 2 sentences, you haven't finished reading the first one as you're reading the second one. So, like, do I spoil myself? For content I've been familiar with, I wouldn't say it's necessarily spoiling myself. If I'm reading something for the first time, I read it line by line. I don't read simultaneously when it's something like that. First time I go through anything, it's a line by line basis. But, like, once I'm familiar with it, I can usually remember where certain things happen. Again, Baker's Dozen is a good example. I can remember parts, where Regina and Robin do X, Y, and Z. So it's not spoiling myself. It's easier once it's something I've read through at least once. So, I mean, the first go through of anything, it's always line by line, and then if I read it again, then I can read it, like, in groups of sentences rather than, line 1, line 2, so on. You said your last question was, when most people read, it's with a voice in their head, so maybe you read so fast that you don't have one. Is it more like taking in information or a scene playing out in your head? Each character in any story has their own voice. So, like I said, the first go through of anything, it's line by line. I get their voices in my head. But the way it works, like, specifically, like, speed reading for me, like, I can picture, like, based on character descriptions, having to, like, this is what they might sound like, this is what they look like. Hi, Mom.
Hi there.
In case you're wondering, that was Flora Lala Kate that just walked in. She's been busy, so I was saying hi to her.
Who is that?
I'm explaining a video about speed reading, because people have asked.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're fine. I'm sure they like hearing you. They like you.
I'm a mess right now, but I'll say hi. I
can't
Yes,
speed
she can
read.
say hi.
though.
Mom's gonna say hi.
Hello. I can't speed read. Just got done conducting a concert all day. So.
I was saying, there's, I can picture each character's voice, what they look like, everything in my head like that.
So well.
That's awesome.
If
I'm sure.
I don't know if I necessarily pictured their voices or anything when I read. It's more or less like, just absorbing the content, really. Like, okay. I used to talk really, really fast. My family constantly had to tell me, slow down and enunciate. So, if I actually talk as fast as I can, that's what it sounds like in my head. And I have a feeling if I don't actually do that, you guys are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? So, alright. I'm going to say to you guys, if I talk as fast as I can, it's how I sounds. Alright. If I say as fast as I can. If I talk as fast as I can, it's how it sounds in my head. So, the gibberish you just heard out of my mouth, that's how everything sounds in my head when I'm speed reading. Which, to most people, it's probably, the little voices you hear in your head that probably get you institutionalized, but I'm normal-ish. And apparently your really, really last question was, if you do have that voice in your head when you read, and if you read a different line at one time, do you have more than one voice? I think it depends. I think that's probably more like dialogue based. Again, Baker's Dozen or stuff that I've read several times, whether it's like Pride and Prejudice, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, anything like that. I'm pretty familiar with when those characters speak and their lines. So in my mind, it's almost a very fast-paced conversation happening at one time. It reminds me of like the cocktail party effect, which if anyone's had a psychology class, you probably know what I'm talking about, where you're trying to attune to one thing. So it's like if I was staying in a really crowded room and there's a bunch of conversations around and these two individuals are having an extremely fast-moving conversation, that's kind of how it plays out in my head. It's, again, not the best explanation, but that's probably the best one I can give you for how it does with me. And, let's see. Sometimes Angry Black Woman submitted a question, too. If you guys have any more after this, feel free to send them, and I'll do another one or answer them privately, whichever you want. She asked, how long have you been speed reading? My mom used to read me when I was little, and like all the way through elementary school and everything, teachers would give you the audio books that you're supposed to follow along with, which, if you're like me, they ticked you off more than anything in this world.
What'd you say?
I would have the story read probably 2 or 3 times through before the book was done. The audio was. So it's just, I kept reading and everything else. In the summer, I read probably, 2-3 books a day. My 9th grade English teacher actually had us tested, like my entire class, for like how fast we read per minute and for like accuracy and comprehension. In 9th grade, I was reading 120 words a minute. And it's not until, up until a few days ago, I thought it was anywhere between probably like 300 and 400 words a minute. But, I took several different reading tests, not just one. And it's, 1,749 words a minute is what I actually read. And, if there's any variation in any of those tests, it's, by 5 or 6 numbers. It's not that big of a difference. So for how long I've been speed reading, it's probably something I've somewhat done, but it's just the more I've read and the older I've gotten, it's just picked up. But I'd say probably, I didn't realize how fast I actually read probably until 9th grade. So, more or less, I would say, 8-9 years then. But, so if you guys have any more questions after this, feel free to send them. I hope this answers some of the ones you guys have. And I don't know if I articulated anything that well, but hopefully I did. So, yeah.